5 years can change everything. Back in high school, there was a boy named Daniel Rivers. He wasn't popular, he wasn't rich, and he wasn't what anyone would call cool. His clothes were worn-out hand-me-downs, his shoes had holes in them, and he often sat alone during lunch. To most of his classmates, he was invisible. To some, he was an easy target. Daniel was nicknamed Loser Dan by a group of arrogant classmates who loved mocking him. They laughed at his cheap phone, his stutter when nervous, and the fact that he sometimes couldn't afford field trips or even lunch. For Daniel, school wasn't a place of learning, it was a battlefield he had to survive every single day. But beneath the quiet, awkward exterior, Daniel had something none of them noticed: determination. He spent countless hours in the school library learning about technology, coding, and business. Every insult became fuel. Every moment of humiliation planted a seed of hunger inside him. 5 years later, Daniel Rivers was no longer the invisible boy sitting in the back of the class. He was the founder of a fast-rising tech company valued at over $100 million. But nobody knew, not yet. One afternoon, Daniel received a strange message on social media. It was an invitation to his high school reunion dinner. The invite was sent by none other than Josh Turner, the loudest, most arrogant classmate who had made Daniel's high school years miserable. Josh's message read, "Hey Danny boy, we're having a get-together. Would be fun if you came. Everyone's curious to see what you're up to, haha. Don't be a stranger." Daniel stared at the message. He could almost hear the mocking tone behind those words. A part of him wanted to ignore it. Another part of him, the part that remembered every cruel laugh and insult, wanted to show up, not for revenge, but for something bigger: closure. So Daniel replied, "I'll be there." The reunion dinner was held at a fancy restaurant downtown. Expensive cars lined the entrance, and former classmates walked in dressed to impress. Inside, laughter echoed as people bragged about their jobs, vacations, and accomplishments. Josh was the center of attention, as always. He wore a designer watch, talked loudly about his new car, and made sure everyone knew he worked for his father's company. When Daniel walked in, silence swept across the table for a moment, followed by forced smirks. Well, look who decided to show up," Josh said with a fake smile. "Danny boy. Still wearing the bargain store special, I see?" The group chuckled, though some shifted uncomfortably. Daniel simply smiled and shook a few hands, unfazed. He ordered a drink and listened quietly as they continued their self-centered conversations. For the first hour, nobody asked him much. Then, as if on cue, Josh leaned back and smirked. "So, Daniel," he said loudly. "What have you been up to? Working at McDonald's? Or maybe still living with your parents?" Laughter erupted again. Daniel took a slow sip of his drink. He could have snapped back, he could have humiliated them, but instead, he chose calmness. "I've been working on a little project," Daniel said. Josh raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? What kind of project? Don't tell me you're still fiddling with those computers like back in school. Man, you really thought you were some kind of genius." Daniel smiled. "Yes, actually. Computers changed my life." Someone at the table, a quieter classmate named Sarah, leaned in curiously. "What kind of work do you do, Daniel?" Daniel finally looked up, his eyes steady. "I run a tech company. We recently hit $100 million in valuation." The laughter died instantly. Forks paused mid-air. Eyes widened. Josh forced a laugh. "You're joking." Daniel pulled out his phone and, with a few swipes, showed them a Forbes article with his face on the cover. The young visionary behind Rivers Tech, a billionaire in the making. Gasps filled the table. Sarah's hand covered her mouth. One guy muttered, "Holy, he's serious." Josh's smirk crumbled. He stammered, that can't be real." But it was real. The very loser they once mocked now owned a company worth more than everything in that room combined. The energy shifted. Suddenly, the same classmates who ignored Daniel in school leaned forward, asking questions, trying to reconnect. "Wow, Daniel, that's incredible. We always knew you were smart, man. But Daniel remembered. He remembered the nights he cried alone, the insults that broke his spirit, and the loneliness he endured. He looked at them calmly and said, "I didn't come here to brag. I came here to remind you of something. The person you mock today might be the person you admire tomorrow. The way you treat people matters more than you think." The table fell silent. Even Josh, red-faced and humiliated, muttered, I guess we were wrong about you." Daniel gave a small smile. It was never about being right or wrong. It's about being kind. That's something money can't buy. That night, Daniel walked out of the restaurant with his head high, not because of his wealth, but because he finally closed the chapter of his past with dignity. And maybe, just maybe, a few of his classmates left with a valuable lesson too. Final message to viewers. Friends, this story reminds us all never underestimate someone because of where they are today. Life changes. People grow. And the one you mock might become the one you admire. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me, have you ever been underestimated, only to prove everyone wrong? And don't forget, subscribe to Be Kind always for more inspiring stories like this. Remember, kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything.